Cyclone, typhoon, hurricane. All of these names are used around the world to describe the most powerful storm known to man.
Though times it seems like I'm coming undone, this world can often feel lonely. No matter what, until this race is won, I will stand my ground where hope can be found. I will stand my ground where hope can be found.
Well, welcome to the table. We have a small table today, but it still counts. It's a coffee table.
It's very heavy though.
With no coffee on it.
It won't be blown away.
No. But we are so glad you're back as we're continuing this series. We're kind of coming towards an end. We're getting towards the end of the season of Lent, moving towards Palm Sunday and Easter. By the way, we're really excited about Palm Sunday and Easter at both of our services. We hope that you will, if you are in the Burlington area or you don't have a church to go to, you'll spend some time with us either online or in person at either one of those, as well as some Holy Week events coming up in between those Sundays. And so
you were telling me there's a way though that folks can really get engaged and at the table.
One of those ways is we have this study guide that goes along with our At the Table videos called At Your Table. And this At Your Table guide, you get a text message to your phone and you get to scroll through and find all sorts of questions to answer, to talk about amongst yourselves or your family. Maybe you want to talk with your spouse about these questions, or maybe a small group, or meet some friends for coffee sometime. And you can watch the At the Table video together. You can answer some of these questions. There's some fun icebreakers. You can.
It'd be a great thing, especially if you
Absolutely.
have teenage kids, middle school kids.
Yes.
Just say, hey, for 15 minutes, we're going to watch this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's a commercial break. Let's pause.
So it's a lot of fun, and we'd love for you to be a part of it.
So look it up. Make sure you're part of that. When we think about why, one of the things that I think that people really get mixed up on, that we have this ideology or this cultural maybe accusation that, well, God's a pretty mean God. Does all these bad things.
Yeah.
Causes all these bad things.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at it, so many of the causations that we can find are really from us.
Yeah.
You know, we're our own worst enemy kind of deal. And so you can blame God for my shooting somebody or my being mean to somebody, but it's really my choice. And God doesn't take away our choice because God is a loving, caring God. You're your own person.
We had a great conversation about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And so that kind of lays the foundation that God has given you a free will, and humankind is notorious for wanting to make sure that we implement our will, our opinion upon everybody else.
Well, but Ray, even if I got mad at somebody, or maybe I got mad at a group of people, I did not send them a hurricane or shake the ground underneath their feet to make an earthquake happen, or in tsunamis. As much as I think I'm cool about moving the water in the swimming pool, like I have some control over it, I can't do any of that.
Can't move an ocean, can you?
I can't.
Yeah. So we know that particularly in the early biblical, in the ancient times, the people, first of all, I think we were talking earlier, I think for some reason we think the ancient people were stupid. Or they didn't have the intellectual capacity that we do.
Oh man, well, they didn't read the books that we read.
That's
they didn't have biology classes and
anatomy, physiology.
They didn't have NASA.
Meteorologists going around.
Right.
You know, so they were just dumber.
Could be.
They could, yeah. They just can't be as smart as we are. Well, they didn't have what we have, but they certainly paved the way for what we have.
Oh man.
You know, so intellectually, they're just as smart as you think you are.
Yeah.
Or I think I am.
With the tools that they had, they probably did even more than we're capable of today with our tools.
Absolutely. Well, back in the ancients, they didn't understand earthquake. They just knew the earth shook and people swallowed up or something like that happened. Well, now we know why that happens, though.
Doesn't make it less scary.
Doesn't make it less scary.
Actually, it might make it more scary.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure I'd want to live on a fault line in California. I mean, and I know those of you who are in California living there, but that's a little, you know, but they say, well, you live on the coast where you have hurricanes all the time. Well, true.
Yeah.
But we know that kind of the earthquakes and the tectonic plates that move and shake and turn, it's really a way that, and volcanoes, it's a way that the center of our earth cools itself.
Yeah.
so that we don't explode.
Right. It's a small release of pressure as far as the world is concerned.
Yes.
Big for the individuals that are right
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
but small in comparison to the whole
The
world.
whole world. That's right. And then hurricanes. You had a you had a unique way of looking at hurricanes.
Well, I don't mean to belittle anybody that's
No,
been through a
I've
hurricane.
been through
event.
5.
Yes, but hurricanes, essentially, as far as the world is concerned, is like a big fan hovering over the waters and the land to cool it off.
And it does.
Yes.
It absolutely does.
Rapidly and drastically.
So all those things are natural phenomena that we don't believe that God made. God put some natural creation things within this planet that really is securing it in a way.
Yeah.
Is creating a safe haven, if you will, for humankind and for living. And so to blame God for creating that is almost like blaming God for creating life.
Well, do you think we still blame God? Because in the Old Testament, they did. I mean, for the flood or for famines or whatnot, it was, like you said, either those people at that time had done something horrible in their life, and thus God had sought God's revenge on them for doing whatever that was. But then you have other places like Jonah, who was sent to go to Nineveh and to tell them that they were going to be rebuked or they were going to be destroyed even for their sins. And he was waiting on that, and it didn't happen.
Right.
So how do we wrestle with this idea that God's work with hurricanes and with disasters and whatnot isn't or is about our living in the world?
Well, don't you think, and I think it was the mentality of the writers, the way they understood the way the world and God worked.
Okay.
Don't you think that had something to do with that question?
Absolutely.
And so I think today we understand that's not, we understand the world better, so that we're not blaming God for everything that happens, because it's a natural phenomenon in this created world in which God is typically not going to break the natural order of the world to make something happen for Job, you, me, or anybody else. And so famine happens. Often famine today happens out of our own things that we have done to planet Earth. But hey, they've always happened.
Yeah.
Because things have changed. You have drought seasons. But also, I was reading, this is about a month ago, some places that had drought that were almost desertous also gave the land time to heal.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, think about that. A desert place is a time to heal.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the Great Plains, overfarmed, and then the Great Dust Bowl happened here in the United States. And those places, some of those places now are vibrant with life.
Yeah.
But the land had been so tormented, for lack of a better term, it's like, what else do we expect? And so it wasn't God doing things. Some of that's at our own hands. And the other part is how we understand God working in the world.
Yeah. God
generally doesn't break the natural order of God's creation to do things. Certainly not to harm people.
So
as we said over and over again in this series, that God does not need to harm people to do God's purposes in the world.
Well, so help us out of a hole a little bit. And here's where I see or for those of us who have not been directly affected by a hurricane or an earthquake or a tornado,
bless your hearts,
we don't know that disaster as well as others.
Yeah.
And those that have experienced it or around the world are currently experiencing that type of natural disaster. How do we wrestle with that? How do we work out of a helplessness in that space, that we're living in a God-loved area that has this disaster that we're affected by?
Well, first of all, I think when that happens, it's the call of those of us not going through that to help those who are.
Yeah.
In my message this coming weekend, I talked about how a hurricane changed a whole church.
Yeah.
And I believe that whole church was better.
Yeah.
Much better after a hurricane than before. But how do we respond as Christians into those disasters? We United Methodists have a particular way we do that around the world called United Methodist Committee on Relief.
Yeah.
UMCOR. And most of you Methodists know about this. It's every penny that we give to United Methodist Committee on Relief goes to the victims of relief. We have set this up. Our administrative costs are covered by local churches around the globe.
Yeah.
And so we respond by our acting upon it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if I'm in it,
Yeah.
number one, from other Christians, if they respond to me, that can help me. But also, if I'm a Christian and help isn't coming, I think this is where Paul particularly talks about the God who loves you will sustain you no matter what.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're going to live forever. Nowhere do we say that you're going to have eternal life here on planet Earth.
Yeah.
But the God who created you will sustain you and will hold you and keep you, regardless of what the surroundings and what the world seems to be doing to you.
Yeah.
And that is the hopeful good news that we want to help people understand.
Yeah.
So that's where the natural disasters will come, those horrible things will happen, people will do horrible things.
Yeah.
But the God who created you will continue to sustain you.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. I think there's maybe one more lesson that I might pull from this that might be helpful. And it's this idea, we talked a couple of weeks ago about how people do horrible things, and we try to wrestle with free will. And if you didn't watch that, go back and watch just a couple weeks ago or at the table. But there's also a lesson that we can learn about how the natural world has these natural disasters that cause harm to communities and lives of people, not to their own fault. That's what we're holding. That's what we're holding as true, is that
Absolutely.
it's not their intended mean
No.
is to cause that harm, but it does happen. And yet, in those communities, in those places where disaster does happen, I think it's a testament to our trust and our faith of the world that we live in, that those communities would go back to either specifically that community, or they would go back to the earth at all to find their nourishment and their sustenance. And so for a community that has experienced famine in an area, they're still going to go back to the land to find their source of food and life.
Yes.
And to a place where buildings and structures kind of fall apart around us because of hurricanes or disaster, we still go back to the earth to live within it, to live even under it.
Yes.
I'm using an example because we're sitting on top of the Durham County main library here in downtown Durham. And I think it's really neat because on the roof where we are now, there is a green roof. And so right behind us, there's some greenery, some live plants, and some earth and some soil that's here on top of the roof. And there's a hillside just behind the camera that also has this. And so literally, there is a house that people are living underneath the earth in a sense.
It's helped sustain
Yeah.
water and clean water,
Yes.
and runoff and all that.
Yeah.
But also we have as humankind been given this knowledge to do this.
Yes.
And then looking right behind us, there's a television station.
Yeah.
WTVD. And Big Weather, Don Schwinneker, wonderful guy. We should have called him and he'd have come up here with us. But anyway, they have all these devices where they can predict where things are going to happen and
Yeah.
how they're going to happen. The conditions are right for a hurricane or a tornado, and to take cover, to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that knowledge, all of that knowledge, I believe, was a gift from God
Yeah.
that we've been given on the backs of all those who've gone before us. It's an accumulative knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, bingo. It's an accumulative knowledge of what we've learned, so that Big Weather over there and all the meteorologists in our area can help us understand, hey, there's a hailstorm that's
Yeah,
likely
yeah.
hitting your area. Put your car in the garage. Don't be driving. There's a tornado coming.
There's the big testament to me, I think, is that in all the disaster that's happened, while we know this is not the reason for it, we hold and we believe that's not the reason that this disaster happens, and yet it's an opportunity for us as people to learn, as we can see that disaster in the earth and still come back to forgive and love and live with the
The
earth,
earth, yes.
then that should be a
That's-
testament for us to be able to do that with other
It's
people
sort of
too.
redemptive, isn't it? That
Yes.
we can do that. It's
Yes.
redemption in this planet itself.
Yeah.
So
We know that we need this world that we
Yeah,
live in.
yeah.
So if we could take some of that and take that forgiveness and that love and that living with to the people that we live around to
To each
that
other.
Forgiveness, and to know that we need each other, the world will be
And
a
the-
different place.
and the nourishment
Yeah, yeah. The nourishment of life from
of
each
life
other.
itself
Absolutely.
to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we appreciate you watching today. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think we're looking forward to not the end of this series, because we've still got lots of why
Lots of
questions that are
whys.
coming around the corner.
Yeah.
But we want you to be a part of it. So make sure that you're checking back with these videos, share and like them on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching. And again, Palm Sunday and Easter are right around the corner. You won't want to miss it. Come and join us.
Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.